radiographic appearance. This is the radiographic appearance of the small bowel. I kind of left off a little bit early the other day because it was too much. The small bowel this is with barium in it, or gastrografin. Okay, so the duodenum looks feathery. The jejunum also looks feathery. Then we get to the ileum and it looks a little smoother, more pipe-like. You don't have that feathery look. Okay, there's two types of digestion. I might have gone over this earlier. The first one is called chemical digestion. It's just what it says. It's the breaking down of food with the use of chemicals. Basically enzymes. Second type of digestion is called mechanical. This is just the churning and peristaltic action. To break down the food. There's a special term you might see someplace. It's called rhythmic segmentation. This just specifically means the churning of the small bowel. That pushes the chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, remember that word? Pushes the chyme against the wall of the small bowel for digestion and absorption.
What's it called?
C-H-Y-M-E, chyme. That's what it's called once it gets to your small bowel. Okay, remember, what's on the small wall of the small bowel that helps with the absorption and digestion? Villi. V-I-L-L-I, the little hair-like thingamajigs. Okay, remember, where does the most digestion occur in the small bowel? Duodenum. Where does the most absorption? Jejunum. Okay. All right, technical considerations. Okay. This is when you're radiographing the GI tract. What do we have to use? What kind of equipment do we usually use when we x-ray the GI tract? Fluoro. Okay, so we usually need fluoro. A little bit of review for Terry's stuff. What's the maximum time on the fluoro timer?
5 minutes.
Good. 5 minutes. And what happens?
The timer goes on.
You get an audible sound, right? Does the machine shut off?
No.
No. Okay, so after 5 minutes you get a sound, but the machine does not shut off. What's unique about the TV monitors that you look at? Besides being live,
The whole border.
what about it?
You can see the border.
Does everything, what if I took an image and compared it to the TV monitor, would they look the same? Why? Aren't the densities reversed?
Oh, like the colors swap.
Okay, so densities are reversed on a normal TV monitor. You never paid attention? So things that should be white are black and vice versa. So doesn't barium look black? Barium should look black and air should look white. It's exactly opposite of what a real image would be. Barium looks black and air looks white. Densities are reversed. Okay, third thing, what's the foot pedal called? Good, the foot pedal for fluoro is called the dead man switch. Why do they call it a dead man switch? Good. If you don't press on it, if your foot comes off of it, it shuts it off. I don't know if you've had this one yet. This is registry. What's the MA when you fluoro? How much MA is being used when you step on that fluoro switch? Oh, you have had it. 1 to 5, I heard someone say it. Okay. So when you step on that fluoro switch, there's only 1 to 5 MA that's being generated.
Does that come from behind the booth as well? Like for all fluoro?
No,
Or only on the dead man switch?
it's coming from the image intensifier. It's coming from inside the fluoro room. How much MA do we use when we shoot a conventional x-ray? When you shoot an x-ray, how much MA are you using? Give me a range. Hundreds. You're in the hundreds. When you shoot a regular x-ray, you're in the hundreds. Okay. Most machines go up to 1,000 MA. You don't need to write this down, but why do you think that they say that, okay, so we use 1 to 5 MA in fluoro, so why is there so much dose in fluoro? The time, you're standing there forever, okay? That's how you get so much dose, or the patient gets so much dose because of the time that the MA is on. Okay. Let's see if you remember this one. What's the fluoro output at tabletop?
20 hours. From 10 to 5. With fluoro or without?
Fluoro output at tabletop.
Oh, 2 wait, 10 hours.
With intensifier?
You're doing it in Rankins? Oh, no, I have to.
Yeah, and
It was 10 and more with the intensifier and 5 without the intensifier.
Oh, I don't want all that stuff.
Oh.
Just put down 10 Rankins then, if you're doing it that way. 10 Rankins per minute. Fluoro output at tabletop,
And what is the other one you have it?
100 milligrays.
Oh.
You really should be doing stuff in milligrays. Or grays.
10.
Okay, so 10 Rankins per minute is the same as 100 milligrays.
What's the symbol for milligrams?
M, little m, big G, little y. Okay, so we're moving on a little bit. So I'm going to talk about contrast agents. Why do we need contrast agents when we're imaging the GI tract?
Low subject
Good. All right, so we need contrast agents when we image the GI tract because it's low subject contrast. Everything looks the same down there. So we have to add something to give it contrast, to make it stand out.
So that's for both negative and positive contrast?
Correct.
Is it- okay.
Okay, I'm going to talk about, I don't know why I am, but anyway, I'm going to talk about negative contrast agents first. So there's two main types of contrast, whatever we do. First one is called a negative contrast agent. Okay, so characteristics of negative. It looks black. on a plain image. So they are radio what? They are radiolucent. See through them. They do not attenuate the beam. The beam goes right through it. Okay, put down some examples. There may be more. Number one are the carbon dioxide crystals. CO2 crystals, the little poppy things. Pop rocks.
Oh.
Have you tasted them? Gotta taste them. Number two is air or oxygen. You guys probably haven't seen that used yet. Mostly interventional. They'll do air or oxygen. This is something that they don't usually use anymore, but write it down. I'm just afraid you might see it on registry stuff. It's a material called methicellulose. It's this thick, clear stuff. Have you seen it?
Yeah, we use it in office.
Do you? I didn't
It's
think.
gross.
Yeah, it's real like gummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think they used it much anymore.
They put it in bread and stuff.
They put it in what?
Is that what they put in the bread?
That's barium, I believe.
So it's sticky and
It's like a liquid. It's like water, but it's liquid.
Yeah, it looks like gel.
Yeah.
Looks like a clear gel.
Yeah.
Okay, the last one is nitrous oxide, which you'd see in interventional or surgery. Okay, positive contrast agents. Okay, characteristics. It's exactly opposite of negative. They do attenuate the beam. They look white on an X-ray. They are radiopaque. Okay, there's two main types. The second type is up there, but I'm going to talk about this first one here. As everybody, who's not seen barium? Everybody's seen barium? Okay. All right, so the first one's called barium. That's what you guys will probably hear, but you need to know the other names for it. It's also known as barium sulfate. You also need to know the chemical symbol is Ba, little a, SO4. SO4. Okay, characteristics of barium. It comes powdered or sometimes pre-mixed. Depends upon your facility. Powdered or pre-mixed. This is important. It's considered water insoluble. It's chemically pure. Another important one, it's considered a suspension, not a solution. It is chalk-like. It's made from the metallic element barium. And it is an inert, I-N-E-R-T, inert organic salt. Okay, So when you have, if you have the powdered barium and you put some water in it and you shake it up, it's not dissolving. It's just little metal flakes that are just being shaken up. Okay? It does not dissolve. Okay, motility of barium. That just means how fast can it move, the motility. Okay, the suspending medium is a deciding factor. So water will make it move fast. And I shouldn't tell you this. If you add a little gastrografin to it, it moves even faster. That's the next one I'm gonna talk about. If you work, if you're at Tampa General, Ivy tries to hide that he does it. He turns his back, he pours in a little bit of gastrografin to make it go faster. You seen him do that? He'll say, you didn't see me do that.
Every single time.
It does move faster with gastrografin. The temperature. Okay. Temperature of the barium. Which do you think moves faster, cold or hot? Or cold or warm? Cold. Yeah. Cold moves faster.
Why is that?
I don't know. That's something that, it is weird. You would think the warm stuff moves faster. No, if it's colder, it moves faster.
Is it because your body heat?
I don't know.
I guess
That's
it
a good
doesn't
question.
activate the enzymes for digestion, so it goes fast.
You think so?
The enzymes inside their optimum temperature is like 30 something.
So Masako said it because it doesn't activate the enzyme. That's your guess?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. That would be a good question. Not sure why. Okay, consistency. So thinner moves faster than thicker. The thinner it is, the faster it moves. Last thing is the patient's condition. So the folks that are bedridden, it moves slower. There's barium that's considered low density. You can see through it a little bit better. It's thinner. And there's HD or high density barium. It's just thicker. It's whiter on an image, not whiter.
You said thinner, you can see through it better.
Yeah, you can see through it more. The thicker it is, the more white it looks.
You call it low.
Low density versus high density. There's something that we used to use to measure the density of barium. Just write it down. I don't know if it's still registry purposes. It's called a hydrometer. That's an instrument to measure the density of barium. What's the recommended KBP with the use of barium? What do you use KBP wise?
120.
100 to 120. That's the recommended KBP. You guys never look at the control panels because it's just automatic, unfortunately. 100 to 120 KBP is the recommended KBP. Okay, another type of contrast agent is called water soluble. The registry stuff started throwing in place of water, they put aqueous, same doggone thing. The students were, oh no, it didn't say water, it said aqueous. It's the same thing. So water soluble, and it's iodinated contrast media. There has to be at least 3 atoms of iodine per molecule. Must be at least 3 atoms of iodine per molecule to make that contrast visible. We'll get to it when we get to special procedures in the fall, but they call it, don't write it down, they call it a triiodinated contrast medium, 3, triiodinated.
You said it must be 30.
Atoms per molecule. 3 atoms of iodine per molecule to make it visible,
So 3 atoms of iodine per molecule.
to make it visible. Okay, differences between gastrografin and barium. Differences between gastrografin and barium. Okay, gastrografin outlines the esophagus well, but it doesn't adhere to it. The esophagus, okay, but it doesn't adhere to it like barium does. Okay, you can get a satisfactory exam with gastrografin as far as the stomach and duodenum. It's okay, but barium's better. Okay, gastrografin, it gives you a rapid survey because it moves faster. But it doesn't provide as much detail as barium. Because it gets diluted. Okay, what did we say KBP for barium? Good, 100 to 120. With gastrografin, it's 75. Some places use more, but I teach 75. Okay, gastrografin has a really bitter taste. Barium doesn't. Okay, contraindications for the use of barium. What does contraindication mean?
Indications when you shouldn't use it.
Right, these are instances where you should not use it. This is registry stuff. Okay, number 1, it's a possible perforated viscous. Possible perforated or hole. In an organ. Viscous means organ of some type.
This is when not to use barium.
Correct. So your test might have something like, what is not a contraindication? Double negative.
Once it's okay.
All right, so why do you think if someone has, let's say they say, okay, the stomach might have an ulcer, which could be a perforated viscous, right? There could be an opening. Why do you think we don't use barium? It can't go into the body, it's not gonna be absorbed. Okay, if it goes into an open space, it just sits there. Okay, it's not gonna be absorbed. Good. Okay, the second contraindication for the use of barium is a possible bowel obstruction.
Sorry.
Possible bowel obstruction. Why do you think that they don't wanna use barium if the bowel is obstructed? Yeah, it'll get stuck. They don't want it stuck somewhere. Okay, third one is a pre-surgical patient. Meaning if they're doing any kind of study in the abdomen, pre-surgery abdomen,
Is it pre?
pre-surgical. Why do you think that one is? Yeah, they don't wanna get in there and cut something open and barium fly out. Okay, last one is something called an esophageal mediastinal.
That's like when people put fist of flat tires. You know, see, it's like full of liquid and you bust the tire off and then white everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
The last one is an esophageal mediastinal fistula. We haven't gotten to terminology yet, but what is a fistula?
It's like a perforation that leads to the outside of the body.
Sometimes they lead to the outside of the body, sometimes they connect two things. So if you see something like this, that means there's a connection or communication between the esophagus and the mediastinum. Isn't the mediastinum an open space? They don't want it getting out into your open mediastinum, okay? So that's another contraindication for barium. Okay, contraindications for gastrografin, or water-soluble iodinated. Not so much anymore, but supposedly if the patient's dehydrated, you shouldn't give them gastrografin. So dehydrated patients, just because it causes more dehydration. Another one they don't really go by anymore. Very young and very old people used to be a contraindication for gastrografin. And the last one is a possible tracheoesophageal fistula. You could say it the other way around it. You don't have to say it exactly that way. Could be esophageal tracheal fistula. Why do you think that is? You don't want that stuff to get in the lungs. You don't want gastrografin. It causes a lot of issues with the lungs because they can't cough it out. It's like it gets stuck in there. Okay. Barium now, if it gets into the lung area, they tell them to cough and they cough it out, but they can't cough out gastrografin. All right, types of studies. The first one is called a double contrast. It's exactly what it says. So it's the use of two types of contrast, positive and negative. Kind of like an upper GI when they use crystals, because they use the barium and then they use the crystals, which is negative. And the other one is called a single contrast. Sometimes they call it a full column. So it's just a full column of contrast. So just like all barium, full column. Full column, just one single contrast. All right, last thing I'm gonna do is, oh, you guys got this thing, right? I will give you the answers to these. Everybody have it?
The unit 17.
It just says abnormalities of the esophagus and GI tract. It's one page.
Oh, I see that.
You not have it?
No, I do.
Huh? Okay. Who doesn't have it? Oh. Everybody.
I can't even request it.
Okay, first one's esophageal varices. This is caused by portal, P-O-R-T-A-L, hypertension.
You said portal.
Portal hypertension. Which is usually from cirrhosis of the liver. What does cirrhosis mean? Hardening. Okay, cirrhosis just means hardening. So the liver is hard. Blood can't get to it. So we get a backup of blood. Okay, specifically what we're talking about here is a backup of blood in the esophageal veins. I'll get into it more another time.
Esophageal vein.
Esophageal veins. What I want you to know is the radiographic look of esophageal varices. It looks like black wavy worms. Some books say it looks like beads of rosary around the esophagus.
These are rosary and what kind of worms?
Around black wavy worms. I like the black wavy worms better. Around the esophagus. Okay, second one is hiatal hernia. Probably all of you have seen this if you've been in floral. That's where the fundus pushes up through the esophageal hiatus. Who's seen that in floral? It's pretty common. I think 80% of the population, if they had a GI, would have a hiatal hernia. It's very common. Third one is gastritis. Did I put the two types? Okay. Gastritis, what's itis? So inflammation of what? Stomach. Okay, so inflammation of the stomach. Okay, acute just means it's sudden onset. And chronic, it just occurs over and over. Okay, next one is a carcinoma. That involves malignancy. What's malignancy?
Progressive.
Spreading or progressive malignancy is a spreading of epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues. So that's like skin, don't write it down. Skin, the lining of your GI tract, that's all epithelial tissue. Okay, next one, polyps. I'm sure you guys in floral have seen a polyp. These are I-N-T-R, intraluminal growths.
You say growth or growth?
Growths. Intraluminal.
Serious one?
All right, so they go inward, intraluminal. They go inside the lumen. Who's seen a polyp? Nobody? Wow. Intra just means within the lumen, within the, wherever it is, small bowel, large bowel. Okay, diverticula. They call them ticks. I'm gonna put that on there. This is an outpouching of the lumen. Goes like that.
So
Outpouching of the lumen. Okay, different types of diverticulas or ticks. First one is zinkers. That is of the esophagus, diverticula of the esophagus. Meckel's is diverticula of the ileum, I-L-E-U-M, ileum. Duodenal is diverticula of the duodenum. And colonic is diverticula of the stomach. Did y'all write that down?
Did you mean colons? There's my.
Oh.
Fuck you.
See, y'all just write everything I say.
yeah, pretty much.
Colonic
Or the
is,
teacher.
colonic is diverticula of the colon.
It didn't make sense, but I was like, maybe they were saying fancy.
No fancy.
So you're saying we shouldn't trust you?
Don't trust me. Alright, next one is enteritis. So itis is inflammation. This is inflammation of the small intestine. I won't do it anymore. No, you're not gonna trust me at all.
The small?
Small intestine. Entero means small intestine. Gastroenteritis is inflammation of the stomach and the small intestine. Almost done. Crohn's disease. This is inflammation usually of the ileum. But it can involve other parts of the intestine.
Just the small intestine or the large too?
Once I've seen it, some doctors call it a different thing in the colon, but some still call it Crohn's.
We could involve.
Other parts of the intestine. What I want you to know definitely about this, Crohn's disease causes intraluminal swelling. So the lumen is very swollen. So the radiographic sign for Crohn's disease, they call it the string sign, because it just looks like a string. You don't see the lumen, you just see a little string. So it's known as the string sign. Okay, neoplasms. Neoplasms is just a general term for a mass of tissue.
Good.
Could be any kind of mass. Neoplasm, new growth, neoplasm. Malabsorption syndrome. This is where the small bowel doesn't propel the food properly. Okay, next one is an ileus. An ileus is an intestinal obstruction. It could be from two things. Number one, or two types. Number one is what they call an adynamic or paralytic ileus. This is where the bowel just doesn't propel the food through. Lost its peristalsis. An example of that is post-surgery, post-abdominal surgery patient. Anybody had a relative that had abdominal surgery? When they go in there and they manipulate, when they futz around with the abdomen, the bowel's like, okay, I don't like this. And it takes a while sometimes to go to the bathroom. So that would be adynamic or paralytic. Was it you?
No, it was not family, but my dad's friend, and they were doing surgery, and after they did surgery, he got an infection and died from it.
Ooh, that's bad.
From them trying to fix everything.
Something, really? Ooh, that's a bad one. Yeah. Another reason that you might have an adynamic or paralytic, if you have an infection, like an appendicitis or something that's infected. Sometimes the bowel doesn't like to move. Maybe that's what happened with your dad's friend.
That was from mechanical.
No, adynamic, that's another example of adynamic, just loses its peristalsis. Okay, mechanical is the next one. That just means something is physically blocking the bowel. Two examples for that. Number one is a plain old tumor blocking it. There's a tumor there. So, and sometimes the bowel gets scarred from post-surgery. There's scarring. They call them adhesions, but don't write that down. All right, peritonitis, inflammation of the peritoneum. Ascites is fluid in the peritoneum. It's those folks with the big, huge bellies, they're really hard. The bellies are really hard. Okay, next one is melanoragia. That is when they have black tarry stool. Melanoragia. Usually what it is bloody stools. So just a little FYI, when it's black, then it's from something's wrong, like up in the stomach or esophagus or something. So by the time it comes out, it's black. If it's red, then something's wrong lower.
I think that smells really bad.
It does. Who told you that?
One of the texts when we went on portable.
Yeah, it smells really bad. And if they throw up, is that what they were talking about, if they throw up?
No, I think it was just the stools you talked
Oh.
about. Like it was a lot. Like,
Yeah. If they have a GI bleed, sometimes when they come into the ER and they throw up, it looks like coffee grounds. Ooh, that really smells. Anyway. All right, esophageal reflux. That's just stomach contents going back up into the esophagus. The next two make a little star by these next two. Esophageal atresia is the first one. That's congenital failure. What does that mean, congenital? They're born with it. Congenital failure of the esophagus to develop. And it ends in a blind pouch. Ends in a blind pouch. Doesn't go anywhere. Doesn't connect to the stomach. Okay, next one is esophageal achalasia. This is dilation of the upper esophagus due to the esophageal sphincter not opening up all the way. Okay, so the esophageal sphincter won't open up. It's some kind of neuromuscular issue. And so we get just a backup in the upper part of the esophagus, and it's real dilated. So men and women, they usually find out they have it like 20 to 30 years of age. Anybody seen it or know anybody? No? Okay. All right, last one, dyspepsia. Dyspepsia. This is a new one that I threw in because I saw it on some registry review stuff. Dyspepsia is just indigestion. That's it, my friends. So we're going to have remember, we're gonna have lab together. I'm just gonna go over a few images of the esophagus, the stomach, and the small bowel.